XCOM UFO Defense is the greatest video game ever made.
Alright, that's enough for this episode. See you next time.
Okay, that probably requires some more explanation. The idea of a masterpiece gets thrown around a lot, whether it's a perfectly designed platformer, a revolutionary adventure game, a masterfully crafted RPG, or a mind-bending puzzle game. The title of masterpiece has been applied to many games.
And I can't even say, but this one hasn't appeared on those lists, because it has. It's considered one of the greatest PC games ever made, but it's also my literal favorite video game ever, so let's take some time to talk about XCOM UFO Defense.
XCOM UFO Defense, also known as UFO Enemy Unknown, is in my mind the single most perfect video game ever made. I've played through it hundreds of times, and yet it never once gets old for me. I've been playing it since childhood, and will no doubt be playing it for many years to come. There's a good chance I'm playing it right now while you watch this video. Yep, I am. But despite my love of the game, it occurred to me I've never really taken the time to analyze why. Just what is it that makes XCOM such an amazing game? So let's take some time to talk about it and really pinpoint what makes it so fantastic. So let's start where every XCOM game begins. After loading up the game, you get to pick wherever you want to build your secret base and name it. Not secret damn it. The game seems very intimidating at first. You're given a ton of menu items and sub-menus full of even more options. But don't worry, it's actually a very simple game. Looking at the graphs page is a great way to learn where UFO activity has been spotted in the world. You can choose what location research that you've done in the entire game are. Why, there's no limit shooting down like alien aircraft. You're gonna want to run. Okay, maybe it's not simple. In fact, the one thing you should probably know about the original game, the word simple doesn't really belong anywhere near it. One thing the newer XCOM games did is streamline them and make them much more accessible to new players, which overall was a very good move. The original just throws you straight into the game without even the slightest idea of what you're supposed to do. One way to learn the game is to read the booklet included. Maybe block out an afternoon because the game's booklet is 134 pages long? Dear God, I hope you brought a Sherpa guide along. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh right, why XCOM is good. Okay, back on track. Your home base is where you grow the XCOM project. You can have scientists research new projects to improve your equipment, engineers to manufacture new tools, and of course, soldiers, all of whom have names randomly generated from a set list based on nationality. There are up to 2,600 unique names you can get for your soldiers, which is good because by the time your first playthrough is over, you'll have killed roughly twice that amount. See, XCOM is all about fighting the encroaching alien menace, and to start out with, you basically have to fight them off with pea shooters and snot. You're using basic pistols and are wearing polo shirts for your body armor, while the enemies are using plasma guns right off the bat, so early in the game, you're gonna die a lot. In fact, it can be really frustrating and annoying when you send a soldier out and they get insta-shot over and over until there's just a massive pile of bodies outside your interceptor and you just have to leave and everything goes to hell and...
Okay, hang on. I keep getting sidetracked. It's so easy to nitpick one of the greatest games ever made, but I'm trying to dissect what makes it good. And thankfully, I can sum up what makes it great in one word: depth.
There is no game out there that has quite the depth of XCOM, and it's not just the kind of depth like Factorio or Minecraft, where you can build and create anything. I'm talking about the depth of the gameplay, the complexity of changes you can make with each playthrough, and the way the game unfolds each time. Let's take a scientific approach to this and break it up into 5 different categories. Before we do that, let me just point out that there's a lot about the original XCOM that makes it amazing, but they carried those mechanics over into the remakes, which are also pretty excellent. No, this is a list of 5 things that not only make XCOM UFO Defense the best game ever, but what they did better than the remakes. Let's start with the first point, and the most important thing that you have in your arsenal to combat the alien menace: soldier control. When you head out into battle, you of course are commanding your team of expertly trained alien killers, or more accurately, confused rookies. But what makes this game so amazing is your control over the soldiers is far more detailed than most other strategy games. You can't have your soldiers do anything at any time. You're given a pool of what's known as time units for each soldier. Everything these soldiers does consumes time units. Moving, crouching down to get a better shot, shooting, blowing their nose, thinking about the nature of rainbows, etc., etc. So for each soldier, you can plan what they do down to the last minute detail. Say you want one to rush up and take cover behind a fence, or you want one to take a few steps, crouch, and take a few pot shots at a distracted sectoid. It gives you a level of variety and customization that most games of the time, and most games even to this day, don't have. Most guns have 3 types of attack: Aimed shot has the highest chance of hitting, but uses the most time units. Snapshot has a much lower chance of hitting, but uses far fewer time units. And auto shot fires 3 shots and uses a moderate amount of time units, but by far has the worst accuracy. And the game even gives you a way to save your time units for each shot, so you can really plan out every attack. And there's even more stats to think about. Each soldier has energy, which can end their turn early if they've been moving through rough terrain or are injured. There's bravery, which directly affects how much morale they lose, and the morale stat itself, which affects the soldier's disposition. The lower their morale gets, say from seeing their friends gunned down, the more likely they are to panic and skip a turn, or worse, go berserk and start shooting high-powered rifles inside the ship. Oh god, what are you doing? Calm down! The point is, you have such control over every single one of your soldiers, leveling them up to increase all their stats really has a significant effect, especially with big rosters and the fact that soldiers aren't exactly that resilient to bullets. It means you're constantly managing every single aspect of keeping them alive, and having that level of control over your team is one of the most integral parts of the XCOM experience. Point 2, the world map. Look at that gorgeous map, only the finest of polygons for our Earth, thank you very much. Something about how janky it looks is what makes it so endearing, but there's a lot more to the map than just looking at it and imagining a Katamari rolling everything up. That graph screen, it shows you where all the alien activity is going down, so you don't have to wait around for aliens to fly within your radar. Maybe one month you'll notice that Texas has been seeing a lot more alien activity. Perhaps a battleship was seen flying overhead. Maybe send some interceptors to patrol the area. They might be setting up a base there, or gearing up for a terror attack. Being able to constantly access the world map, getting detailed breakdowns of every country and region, and the ability to do something about it and proactively combat each individual element of the alien menace makes every single playthrough unique and fun, while letting the stress build as you frantically hold the pieces of your resistance together. And speaking of bases, there are lots of them, not just from aliens, each race of which can set up bases on Earth, but you can have multiple bases too, and invading bases is the only way to get an alien commander that you'll need to unlock the final mission. But invading their bases will make it more likely that they'll invade your base. Maybe get some defense systems in place. Point 3, randomly generated maps. It is statistically impossible to have the same map twice in XCOM, because every single battle you get into, the map is entirely randomly generated from tile sets. I know it's not exactly groundbreaking to have randomly generated maps nowadays, but for 1994, this was a big deal. In many ways, it's an early entry into the incredibly popular roguelike genre, but focusing more on strategy than action. It means that every level you play can seem familiar, so you know how to navigate certain tiles, but strategies never remain consistent. You have to deal with whatever cards you're dealt each time, which keeps the replayability high. Not much else to say, it's just a really nice feature. Point 4, graphics. I know that the new games had cool and slick graphics, but honestly, nothing will beat the designs this game has. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what the style of the game is, so I'm gonna go ahead and invent a name for it. Action figure punk. Everything looks like a toy you would play with as a child, from the overly army-esque characters you have, both with and without armor, to the ships you fly, which look like they were straight from the toy shelf, but the best designs by far are the aliens. There are 5 main races of aliens, each of which have one bonus enemy they bring on terror missions. You have the classic gray aliens, insectoids, you have the weird snake men known as snake men, the imposing cloaks of the ethereals, the sleek design of the cyberdiscs, the green leotards of the mutons, and of course the sheer terror of the single most deadly enemy in XCOM history, the chrysalids. These bastards have ruined so many battles for countless players, since they move long distances, have high health and armor, and everything they kill is turned into one of them. Bug-eyed bastards. I'll never forget the feeling I had when I was a kid and would have a terror mission against the Floaters, who brought along their terror unit, the Reapers. Giant bipedal creatures with huge teeth who can only eat by tearing flesh. These things scared the crap out of me as a kid. Funnily enough, they're by far the weakest enemy in the game. All they can do is bite, which does very little damage, and they have incredibly weak armor and huge hitboxes. Why was I afraid of these things? Oh, right! But everything I've talked about pales in comparison to the one thing that makes XCOM better than any other game ever made, that makes it a masterpiece, that makes it a game worth replaying over and over, and that is the difficulty, specifically the AI difficulty. It all comes down to one thing: Every time you play, the aliens just have their own agenda. Sure, you won't start out fighting the strongest enemies, but each time you load up a new game, the aliens have a new strategy, a new plan of attack. Maybe one time you'll run into almost exclusively sectoids for most of the game as they set up a stronghold in Asia. Or perhaps the aliens are on a mission of terror across the world, and you find yourself struggling to keep up with a rapid escalation. See, there are very few flags the game sets for the aliens. The first few months of the game are just sectoids and floaters, but when April hits, snake men start showing up, and the risk for ethereals and mutons begins to climb. But other than that, the aliens just do their own thing. Now, sometimes that works in your favor. If the aliens are especially cautious, you'll have plenty of time to build up your offense and defense, and will be able to counteract them. But sometimes the aliens might be incredibly aggressive, and you'll find yourself barely able to keep up with the invasion. Compared to other games of its type and other roguelikes, it creates an atmosphere of the unknown every time you play. I suppose that's where the original European title of the game, Enemy Unknown, comes from. Because there's only one path for you to follow to get to the end, you know exactly what to do, but you just don't know how you're gonna get there, because the AI might throw a curveball at any time. You're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the next difficulty spike, and the goosebumps you get when stepping out of a ship only to see a chrysalid for the first time in a run, well, it's a feeling no other game can quite match. And it's these 5 points: soldier control, the world map, randomly generated maps, graphics, and AI difficulty that come together to create the single most replayable and fun gaming experience ever. I truly believe that XCOM UFO Defense is the greatest video game ever made. There's absolutely nothing more satisfying than a run coming together and you sending your troops on the final mission, a 2-stage marathon where you must invade the alien base on Mars, also randomly generated, and destroy the alien mother brain once and for all to end the menace. Okay, just a little aside, I love that when you're destroying the brain in the ending, there's a little screen that just says no on it. Oh no, my last line of defense, asking forcefully. And when you've finished a run and are sitting back and enjoying that stat screen to see just how many of your soldiers died, only one thought crosses your mind. Let's play another round! Seriously, XCOM is one of those games where when you finish, you want to jump right in for another round. Maybe you'll try a new base layout, or maybe you'll bump the difficulty up, or maybe you're crazy enough to go Iron Man mode, a single save file that autosaves after you do anything, so no saves coming for you, but remember, the aliens are going to approach in an entirely new way as well. XCOM really, truly is a masterpiece, however you look at it. Most people I know who grew up with it consider it a classic. Heck, even my brother, who doesn't like video games at all, absolutely loves XCOM. The remake series was excellent too, but nothing will ever compare to the original. I consider it the greatest achievement in video games, a game that simply cannot be topped in terms of depth, gameplay, and overall enjoyment. If you've never touched an XCOM game, it's definitely worth it to pick up and try it out. And if you're more familiar with XCOM from the newer games, well, try it out anyway. It's cool to see where such an amazing franchise got its absolute masterpiece of a start. And man, it's funny to realize that when I was a kid, this game kinda scared me. Really, when you look at it now, it's sort of quaint and it's not really Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe as I put out 2 new videos a week, Game Boy Roulette every Friday, and a brief look at Dollar Store Gaming or 10 Things You Missed every Monday. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.